Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dhanavad Pranam devotees. So I have one question that came in yesterday, and I'm just going to answer it as briefly as possible, because I know during Kartik Mass many devotees, including myself, we're trying to have so much time for many aspects of our inner bhajan life, or if it's bhajan abhas, whatever it might be, we're trying our level best. At the same time, Swadhyay and Guru Seva are still important things. And so I've always considered that it is part of Seva, excuse me, try to adjust this, that is also part of Seva to do these questions and answers. I'm trying to position this in such a way the skylight doesn't interfere. So yesterday one question came in, and paraphrasing the question, it was regarding the fruitfulness of philosophical debate and the harm that can come from philosophical debate. The devotee mentioned that they've seen over the course of, they've been a devotee, they said 7 years, and in those 7 years, they've seen many occasions where either virtually or even personally, they've witnessed debates degrade into arguments which carry, at least from what they've seen, carries the influence of aparad from one devotee to another, or even from one group to another. So my best response, and I always welcome others to respond as well, is that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and there's different opinions on this verse as well, but Siddhanta Baile Chittana Kara Ulas Yahoete Lage Krishna Sudrida Manas. If any discussion is taking place as a vad, vad means like, vad has many meanings, but in this context it means a discussion in pursuit of truth. As long as any philosophical or theological discussion carries that essential content and is devoid of the upsurge of material egoism or other material conditioned byproducts. And that's a very difficult thing to do, because I am a conditioned soul. I cannot speak for everybody, but whatever level of conditioning that we may still have in our unfoldment, some of that may rise and become, seep into the nature of a discussion. We, of course, should always try, and this is maybe the differentiating factor that I'm speaking about, there should be a great attempt to prevent the seeping of whatever our material conditioning is from seeping into discussions when it comes to theology or philosophy or seeking the truth for our genuine growth and unfoldment. Sometimes that is very difficult, but it should be something that is part of any philosophical discussion. Just like there's a popular saying, check your ego at the door, and etc. So we should have that kind of mentality in going into philosophical discussions, that I'm speaking to Vaishnavis. I'm speaking from the service to my Guru Pada Padma. And in doing that, a natural kind of adhar or respect should manifest in the devotee's heart. And therefore, in their dealings with other Vaishnavas, that feeling should become the prominent mode of transmission of whatever it is you want to say or get across, etc. When that doesn't happen, a natural degradation of the discussion that may have originally even been in pursuit of truth then becomes jalpa. Jalpa means that I want to hear my conclusions. I want to hear my understandings. And that becomes prominent. And when that becomes prominent, the false egoism develops a taste in hearing our own selves elucidate on various things, and therefore the ideal, which was to find a truth in a discussion, becomes displaced or becomes secondary to tasting my own philosophical abilities or something. And then when that degrades further, it becomes vitanda. Vitanda means that there becomes a sense of the need to establish superiority of my argument at all costs. And even at the sacrifice of what may be true, still I want to establish my point. So at this point, truth it becomes irrelevant, and the establishment of my conception, my idea, my point becomes prominent. So of course, whenever any discussion degrades to that point, then the efficacy for anyone involved, whether it's a multi-discussion or two people discussing, the efficacy of finding the truth and the potential for growth from discovering that truth becomes lost, and rather there is a harmful effect. It's just like any medicine. The medicine taken as a dosage, according to the instructions of the physician, has great efficacy in curing a disease or dealing with a health problem. But when taken according to one's own conception, well, if I took one and that's very powerful, maybe I'll take 10. That should be more powerful. So you can see the ill-based logic there, right? So if we find discussions degrade, then we should remove ourselves from those discussions, because then it becomes what is called tarka. Tarka means just argument. It's not really fruitful discussion. And it can't lead to revelations of the truth, nor, as in the verse, Ihalagi Krishna Sudrida Manas. Right? So Siddhanta Baile, Chitana Korulas, Yahoite Lage Krishna Sudrida Manas. So when Krishna is pleased, Drida Manas means that the mind, which is foundation by faith and bhakti, becomes stronger. Because Krishna, Guru Parampara, Vaishnava is being pleased, a certain strength comes in your convictions in bhakti, and they grow. When Tarkavad, that doesn't happen. In Tarkavad, or argument, only the conditioned nature that we have becomes fueled and enhanced. So it doesn't produce the outcome which is desirable, which is growth in bhakti. So if we discover, even by hint, and sometimes we may not be as in tune. I remember in 2015, I had a protracted discussion about a particular issue. Sometimes some excitement came in the exchange of discourses. I don't remember experiencing that any of those Vaishnavas involved, they were mature Vaishnavas, I don't recall any purposeful disparaging remarks or other sort of things going on. At one point I thought perhaps there was some sarcasm that was being directed, but then I really, when I thought about it more deeply, I realized the devotee was expressing it in a way to make me more reflective about what it was I was saying and how they were understanding it. So I don't think it was an intentional sarcasm as much as it was trying to give a pictorial vision for me to see, this is maybe what you understand, Mukunda, but this is what it sounds like when it comes across. And so in any kind of discussion, we have to be attentive to that as well. That it may completely be logical and clear in our minds, but the parlance for other persons may not be digestible in the same way. So we always have to be careful, and I've always tried very hard to try to create a balance between expressing what I've understood of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra with the actual Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra present. Because when you do like that, it gives more of a weight towards these sayings of our gurus, our Guru Parapadma, our Guru Vargas, than it does how you've understood them. And also where you find a lack of willingness to do that is indicative that perhaps the conversation will lead more towards Jalpa and Vitanda than actually establishing a truth. Because we all know that truth and the vetting process to find truth is in Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. So we can't dismiss any of those elements if we're looking for actual discussion to find the truth, right? So our understanding even has to take a back seat to Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, right? So even a person may hear the teachings coming from their Sri Gurudev, and because every person is a unique DNA, so to speak, not just physically speaking, I'm speaking karmically and by bhakti sanskars. I think I mentioned this yesterday. Everybody, praktana adunki chasti yasat bhakti vasana. Every person has their own bhakti sanskars from previous lives or maybe more recent. And we can't gauge necessarily, but everybody has them. As well, everybody has their karmic portfolio. So the combination of their bhakti sanskars and their karmic portfolio come together, and a unique dynamic interchange goes on in every individual at every moment, right? Because there's the process of many people eliminating the karmic portfolio and that being replaced by the adunik, means current impressions coming from bhakti and their practice of bhakti. So everybody is a unique individual in this regard, and everybody's unfoldment, realizations, how they've even understood the teachings coming from the same guru, that may be, in fact, have some variation. Now, the variation, if it becomes to the point where it's completely divergent, then, of course, that has to be examined. For instance, if someone was to suggest that, well, actually, the idea of practicing the 4 rules and regulations, which are, these are not sastric things, these are kind of really human qualities that a person would have coming on the path of bhakti. So the 4 regulative principles, like no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, that's sort of a dharmic thing. That's what should be going on for human beings. But human beings who are pursuing the path of spiritual life, that's sort of a given. So if you find that, for instance, someone says, well, in the matter of one of these 4 principles, even though Sri Guru taught this, I think it was for a certain time and place, right? Because, actually, unbelievably, that did happen at some point a little bit. For some persons, they begin to espouse the idea that the idea of following, for instance, no illicit sex, could lead to repression and other kind of mental conditions, and therefore, though it was something that is a prerequisite to spiritual practice, it had to be adjusted and dealt with, and therefore, perhaps, it could not be considered one of the instructions of Guru that could be followed universally at all times, etc., etc. And what I mean by that is, not that we make adjustment to where we are in relation to that, right? In other words, if a person cannot follow that, then they have to think, yes, I'm incapable of following it. Not that the instruction has some fault in it, but there's the fault in me. And by practicing bhakti, I will grow and be able to overcome that fault. Or somebody has a problem with intoxication or something, then I will grow and overcome that fault. But I can't say, well, looking around at the world and the millions of people who have problems with intoxication or addiction, then, perhaps that rule is insufficient because it doesn't accommodate the human psychologist, whatever argument people may give. So here's a point where the divergence becomes so large that it's not something that can be reconciled by a discussion. It actually has to be an inner adjustment on behalf of the party that espouses the operating in opposition to the order of Guru. The third offense to Harinam is Guru Avagya, to disobey the order of Guru. Sometimes that's a more subtle thing. In other words, somebody may have a certain understanding of the teachings of Guru, and someone may have a different understanding, right? In genuine Vad, that may be able to be reconciled. But again, even in that regard, if there is the either Jalpa or Vitanda mode of discussion based on those conditional elements we all may have, right, then reconciliation won't come, and even the potential of aparad may arise in that environment. So it's very important to completely remove yourself from that kind of environment and go on in your practice of bhakti sincerely. Even Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the 15th chapter of Jaiva Dharma, he was very clear when he was speaking to Brajanath that, listen, I've explained all Jiva Tattva to you, but I'm asking and saying you should not even inquire about this from someone. So that's a very amazing statement, that someone is given a whole teaching purportedly on the Siddhanta of the Jiva, and then said, well, listen, I say don't inquire about this from anyone. Everything I've spoken to you is only an indication. And more than that, you should really try to realize it in your Chit Samadhi. Right? Which obviously that's true for anything. We should try to have realization through the practice of bhakti and the genuine revelations that come about from that practice. More importantly than trying to establish a particular understanding just based on the logic and reasoning of some kind of discussion, right? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in that same chapter acknowledges the fault in Prakat Bhasha, means in our material language. He acknowledges also the nature of the jivas being pramad, that they don't have necessarily, due to absorption in so many material things, the ability to concentrate and fully digest Siddhant in a certain way at all times. So in many ways, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur laid the foundation for understanding how to discuss something. For one, we need to acknowledge certain natural faults in material language. We need to acknowledge that not everybody can digest all Siddhanta equally at all times. So it's not just a matter of somebody saying, well, this is what it is. I've understood the truth and here it is. And no, different people at different stages of unfoldment will have different levels of understanding something, right? And here, different levels doesn't indicate superiority. It indicates uniqueness. It simply indicates the individuality of people on the path. It doesn't speak to a superiority of one person over another. So it is very important that, back to the original nature of the question, that any kind of philosophical or theological discussion carries the nature of vada. Vada means to seek the truth. And in seeking the truth, it is extremely important that the relative aspects of our own being are put to the side in deference to the absolute nature of realized souls, Guru, Sadhu, Sastra, that becomes, and also that tandem, Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, because sometimes in a discussion also, if one person says, well, my Guru Dev said, and somebody says, my Guru Dev said, then you don't really have a basis to come to a conclusion, because there are many factors which may be involved. One is your Guru Dev may have said to you for a particular reason. My Guru Dev may have said to me for a particular reason, right? Perhaps my Guru Dev, your Guru Dev, they may have a certain angle of vision on a particular Siddhanta at a particular time for a particular reason, etc., etc. Therefore, Guru always says the vetting method and the method for establishing the truth is Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. Because by that tandem, then there is, consistency of thought at a level where it can be reconciled. Right? Because it was even very clear many years ago to me that I saw that our Srila Prabhupada had spoken a certain theological idea. And different devotees understood it according to their maturation, etc., differently. The problem is that later on, that unfolded into a group dynamic where some people said, well, this is it. Other people said, this is it, and never the twain shall meet. So if that discussion, which many devotees had said, well, should be put on the table and put under the examination of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, then that would have given rise to the ability to look at the entirety of the issue from the widest spectrum of the vetting process. And this vetting process is not something that is coming from the individual disciples, it's actually the teaching of Guru. Right? So if that has been done, then you have so much more potency in the vetting process of a particular theological idea or particular philosophical idea. If you simply say, my Guru said to me, and this is what I understood, you've just narrowed everything down to basically what you've understood. Because Sri Guru is absolute, but our understanding may not yet be on an absolute level. Therefore, we sort of completely narrow down the ability to come to a deeper understanding or complete understanding even by simply saying, I heard my Gurudev say this and this is what it is. Whereas if we align Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra, now we've created the widest and the authorized template and viewer under which to look at things. Right? So viewer here, I'm indicating whether you want to call it a microscope or a telescope. What is being indicated is that now you have the broadest vision to look at any theological or philosophical idea and make an attempt to have Vad or a finding of the truth. Right? So hopefully, Prabhuji, and to your good wife, this answered your question to some degree about whether discussions philosophically can be fruitful, and I've also explained how they can be harmful. And as far as the other questions you're asking, I have not set a travel schedule completely yet for next year. If I do find some way, by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, to get that far west, certainly I would love to have your association, and also for the group that you have. And I'm very happy to hear that you're preaching and that there's a mostly new group, because we want people to come to the fold, not so much for institutional purposes, but we want people to come to the fold for their own benefit. In other words, the path of going back to Godhead, or going to increase of our spiritual understanding, that's beneficial for everyone. So it doesn't matter which institutional path they take, only genuineness is what is sought. So I'm very happy to hear that you're preaching. And also I'll say, I know in your humility or in your feelings about yourself, you feel yourself a certain way. I'm not going to repeat here. But our qualifications don't come from ourselves. The qualifications obviously come from Guru and Guru Parampara. So your efforts to do whatever it is that you've understood best in pursuit of helping persons, that is recognized and subsidized by Guru Parampara. When I first went to preach in Africa in 1979, I had still not read even all of our Srila Prabhupada's books. That was something I vowed to do while in Africa, because we had so many books. Actually, when I first entered the small apartment we were staying in when we started our preaching in Nigeria, the place that was to be our temple room was filled from floor to ceiling almost with donated sets of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I vowed that I was going to read every book, every purport, etc. And, by grace of Guru and Gauranga, I kept that vow. It doesn't mean anything because it's a matter of understanding, but at least the intent was there. And my point here being that certainly so much understanding that by the grace of Guru and Gauranga may have entered my patra at this time certainly wasn't there at that time, and hopefully in the future revelations will be deeper and deeper, etc. But the point was, because I tried to do seva, that whatever it is I understood I try to share genuinely and to bring people into the fold of the special mercy of the gift of spirituality given by Sriman Mahaprabhu, right? We don't condemn anyone for taking any spiritual path, but we do recognize the speciality of the gift of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Chirarata damni jagupta vitam swanama premamritatyudhara apamra yovitatara gaur. So this was a verse that was often quoted by Srila Gaura Govind Swami Maharaj, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did the amazing thing which only happens once in a day of Brahma, and that's that he imbued Sri Harinam with Prem Amrit, the nectar of Prem, right? So it doesn't only give liberation, but it gives the uniqueness of service to the love of Shri Radha Krishna Yuga. This is the speciality of Mahaprabhu's gift in this Danya Kali Yuga. So to bring people to have the opportunity for that most rare, highest gem of spiritual pursuit, love of God, then by hook, crook, any means we have at our disposal, we should try to bring people closer. So I hope that this was satisfactory and helpful. Also, one devotee, Prabhuji, is putting in the comment another verse which is very similar. That Mahaprabhu, he made a garland of Sankirtan and Nam Sankirtan and praying. So that verse is also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in the comments, devotees posted that verse. So looking at these verses, you can take inspiration, and especially going and doing Harinam at the school, as you mentioned, and having a group of bhaktas from that place or people becoming interested is a really, really great service. Really, really great service. I think in many cases, devotees given a reference for it. It's Adi Leela 440, right? So you can take a look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 440, and have inspiration from this verse. Again, I have so much fond remembrances of preaching in Africa at that time. We were pioneering. There were no temples really at that time established. And so to go and with whatever facility you had, try to participate in the prophecy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is quoted in Chaitanya Bhagavat, right? To participate in that, I think, is the way to get so much of the Kripa of Mahaprabhu. And getting that Kripa of Mahaprabhu, of course, it gives the ability to get high class of Sadhu Sangha. And in that high class of Sadhu Sangha, one can actually get bhakti. So my Dandavat pranams to you, your good wife. I don't know the other, it was, yeah, I'm looking, I see, there's just a comment there. Okay. All right, Prabhuji, my Dandavat pranam. All devotees continue to have a very beautiful Kartik Mas, becoming absorbed. Jai, Vanchakalpaturvescha, Kripasindhu Evacha, Patitanam Pavanavya, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.